When you finally stop fighting the noise of the world, something sacred begins. In the quiet, when your body grows still and your heart softens, Allah's unseen hand starts to work not with thunder, but with mercy. He repairs the cracks that struggle created, mends the pieces you thought were lost, and breathes life into what exhaustion silenced. Rest is not weakness, it is divine trust, a silent surrender that says, I have done my part, now let the Creator complete what I cannot. In that stillness, your soul is washed clean of worry. Your spirit learns again how to breathe without fear, how to move without force. The warrior learns that renewal does not come from endless motion. It comes from allowing peace to touch you, from letting Allah remake you in silence. Because when you rest with faith, you do not pause your journey. You prepare for the next rise. The soul does not speak in noise, it speaks in silence. When you finally stop chasing the echo of the world, you begin to hear it breathing again. It does not need applause or motion to exist, only space. In that quiet, you begin to feel something ancient, the rhythm of life, before ambition, before fear. It is not emptiness, it is restoration. Stillness is not the absence of life, it is the rediscovery of it. When you slow down enough to listen, every breath becomes sacred. The air feels different, heavier with meaning. You start to notice the pulse beneath your rest, the pulse of creation itself. In that awareness, the soul finds its rhythm again, unforced and pure. The world teaches you to move endlessly, to chase without pause. But even the sea withdraws before it returns. The same truth applies to the spirit. It cannot flow if it never retreats. In quiet, it gathers strength. It listens to Allah's whisper, a reminder that motion without purpose is noise, but rest with awareness is worship. When the soul is suffocated by striving, silence becomes its medicine. You cannot fight exhaustion by pushing harder. You heal it by allowing stillness to hold you. That is not quitting, it is trusting that your Creator finishes what your strength cannot. The one who learns to rest in faith never truly stops moving. He flows through surrender. The warrior trains his body in movement, but his spirit in stillness. He knows that action without awareness is chaos. When he rests, he does not collapse, he returns. The soul, too, must return to its source. In silence, it remembers who it was before the noise of the world told it who to be. When you sit in stillness long enough, you begin to feel your breath differently, slower, deeper, softer. It is not just oxygen, it is prayer. Each inhale is a gift, each exhale a release. The soul does not heal through effort, but through allowing life to pass through it again without resistance. Stillness reveals what rushing hides. You start to notice that peace was never absent. It was simply buried beneath motion. When the mind quiets, truth rises naturally, like light returning to a darkened room. You begin to see that the soul was never broken, only unheard. The noise of the world convinces you that stillness is laziness, that rest is wasted time. But wisdom knows the opposite. Rest is a form of discipline, the courage to trust time's divine rhythm. In stillness, the spirit aligns with something greater than its own will. That alignment becomes strength. The quiet does not demand effort, it asks for surrender. And in that surrender, something miraculous happens. You stop trying to control healing and allow healing to happen. You become the observer, not the architect. The soul breathes freely when it is no longer imprisoned by force. The warrior who cannot rest becomes brittle. The mind that never pauses becomes blind. To return to stillness is to sharpen your awareness again. You begin to see with fresh eyes, to feel with depth that busyness dulled. Stillness restores the sharpness of perception, not through effort, but through renewal. There is a strength in gentleness that movement cannot teach. Stillness reveals that. When you are quiet, you begin to understand that peace is not passive, it is powerful. It is the strength that does not shout, the endurance that does not rush. The quiet soul moves with calm precision, untouched by chaos. When you rest consciously, you are not escaping life. You are returning to its center. You remember that existence is not measured by how much you do, but by how deeply you are aware while doing it. The quiet trains presence. It reintroduces you to yourself. Stillness brings you face to face with everything you've avoided. It does not distract, it exposes. You see your fears, your attachments, your illusions all reflected clearly. The brave do not run from this mirror. They look into it until what remains is truth, simple and unshaken. When the soul breathes again, it no longer craves recognition. It moves quietly, content in its purpose. The need to prove fades, replaced by peace. In stillness, you stop competing with the world and start aligning with the divine. That shift changes everything. You begin to see that silence has its own language. It speaks without sound in peace, in awareness, in calm. The soul understands this language naturally. It was created in it. You do not have to learn it. Only remember. Stillness is the native tongue of the spirit. The body heals in rest, but the soul heals in surrender. To rest physically is easy. To rest spiritually requires trust. It means believing that Allah is working even when you are not. That belief is what transforms quiet into renewal, silence into strength. Every moment of stillness becomes an act of worship when done with awareness. You are not idle. You are allowing yourself to be remade. The one who rests in remembrance is not lazy. He is alive in patience. That patience is a bridge between exhaustion and peace. The quiet soul is not detached from the world. It simply sees it clearly. It moves slower, but with greater impact. Its actions carry weight because they are born from awareness, not reaction. This is the power of the still warrior, calm in presence, unstoppable in purpose. When the world pulls you in every direction, silence becomes your sanctuary. It is where you meet yourself, without masks, without roles, without noise. There, you rediscover that you are not your failures, your ambitions, or your fears. You are simply being. And that being is enough. The soul breathes again when you stop trying to prove your worth through motion. You realize that value was never earned, it was given. The divine did not create you to chase endlessly, but to exist fully. Resting in that truth is the highest form of gratitude. Stillness teaches humility. It reminds you that you are not the source of your own strength. You are the vessel through which strength flows. You stop fighting for control and start allowing flow. And in that surrender, you become more powerful than ever before. The one who masters stillness no longer fears time. He knows that what is meant for him will not pass him by. He trusts the divine pace, fast or slow, visible or hidden, because he knows healing does not follow clocks. It follows surrender. When the soul is quiet, even the smallest things become profound. The sound of wind, the rise of breath, the warmth of light. You start to notice that these were never ordinary moments. They were reminders, gently calling you back to presence, to Allah, to yourself. Stillness is not an end. It is a beginning. It is where brokenness becomes wisdom, where fatigue becomes faith, and where silence turns into song. When you allow that quiet to fill you, you realize you were never empty, only waiting to breathe again. And when you rise from that silence, you carry something the rushing world cannot touch: calm. Not the calm of escape, but the calm of understanding. The soul that breathes again does not chase peace. It radiates it. That is renewal. That is strength. That is life returning home. Surrender is not the act of giving up. It is the art of giving into truth. It is the moment when your will bows to wisdom, when you stop fighting what is already written and start flowing with what is meant for you. In surrender, there is no weakness, there is release. It is not defeat. It is understanding that power does not come from control, but from connection to the source. The strongest river is not the one that resists its banks, but the one that follows its course with grace. So too, The warrior learns that surrender is the motion of alignment, not rebellion, but trust. When you move in harmony with the divine current, your strength multiplies. You stop exhausting yourself against life and start moving with its rhythm. Control is born from fear. Surrender is born from faith. The more you cling to outcomes, the heavier life feels. But when you let go, truly let go, you feel weightless. The universe begins to move through you instead of against you. In that moment, you understand what power really means, not force, but flow. The greatest victories are often won without struggle. The sword that cuts cleanly does not strain, it aligns. The same is true of the spirit. When you surrender to Allah's will, your movements become effortless, your heart unburdened. You still act, but your action is guided, not driven by desperation. Surrender is the bridge between chaos and peace. It is the decision to stop asking why and start saying yes. The warrior knows that life is not always meant to be understood. It is meant to be trusted. What feels like loss is often preparation. What feels like stillness is often growth unseen. To surrender is to unclench the fists of your spirit. As long as you hold tightly to what must go, your hands remain too full to receive what is coming. Allah replaces what you release, but only when you make space for it. Letting go is not loss, it is invitation. The mind fears surrender because it confuses it with submission to defeat. But the soul knows better. The soul recognizes surrender as the return to peace. When you release your illusions of control, you find freedom, the kind that no external victory can grant. You stop fighting reality and start dancing with it. The warrior does not surrender because he is tired. He surrenders because he is wise. He knows that resistance wastes energy and blinds clarity. In stillness and trust, he becomes faster, sharper, more effective. His movements come not from panic, but from presence. Surrender refines his precision. Surrender does not remove action, it purifies it. It removes fear from your motion. You begin to act from peace instead of pressure. When your actions arise from surrender, they are not reactions, they are revelations. Each movement becomes aligned with something greater than yourself. There is beauty in the way surrender humbles you. It strips away the illusion of independence, revealing that you were never meant to carry the entire weight of existence alone. To depend on Allah is not dependency, it is design. The leaf that lets go of the branch does not fall. It is carried. When you surrender, your vision clears. The fog of worry lifts. You begin to see that everything is unfolding, not against you, but for you. The pain that once seemed cruel becomes a teacher. The delay that frustrated you becomes protection. In that awareness, the heart softens and peace enters. True motion begins when struggle ends. You cannot move freely while chained to resistance. Surrender cuts those chains quietly. The warrior's steps become lighter, his actions cleaner, his direction certain. He no longer moves to escape, he moves because he is guided. Surrender requires strength because it demands honesty. You must admit what you cannot control. You must face the limits of your understanding. But once you do, fear loses its grip. In acknowledging your smallness, you awaken to the vastness of the divine, and that realization becomes your greatest armor. The one who surrenders stops fighting time. He no longer chases what is not ready or forces what is not his. He trusts that what is meant will find him, not through force, but through faith. That trust transforms waiting into worship and patience into power. Every act of surrender is an act of remembrance. It is saying, I am not the master, I am the instrument. It is the same awareness that makes water powerful. It shapes the world, not by force, but by flow. You become unstoppable when you stop resisting what must be. The greatest storms within you quiet when you surrender. Anxiety loses its teeth, pride loses its armor, and anger dissolves into acceptance. You start to see that surrender is not the end of strength. It is its purification. Only when the storm inside you calms can you see clearly enough to move wisely. In surrender, motion becomes prayer. Every step, every breath, every choice becomes infused with intention. You are no longer acting for approval, but out of alignment. The warrior moves not to prove his worth, but to honor the one who gave him the path to walk. To surrender is to stop measuring your progress by outcomes. Success no longer defines you, sincerity does. You begin to act for truth, not applause. The result loses its weight because you know that what is written for you cannot miss you, and what misses you was never meant to stay. Surrender reveals how much noise pride creates. When you stop trying to control every outcome, you hear the whisper of guidance. That whisper was always there, hidden beneath the roar of ego. You were not waiting for answers, you were waiting to become quiet enough to hear them. The warrior's calm comes from surrender, not certainty. He does not need to know what comes next, only that he will meet it fully. This faith makes him unbreakable, because his peace does not depend on circumstance. His stillness is not escape, it is mastery. In the still heart of surrender, the body relaxes and the spirit expands. What once felt impossible becomes effortless. The energy you wasted resisting now becomes power for creation. You stop surviving and start living. You stop fearing and start flowing. Surrender is not a single moment, it is a way of being. It is the daily practice of trust. Each sunrise is another chance to let go of yesterday's grip and meet the new day with open hands. In that openness lies abundance, because nothing real is ever lost through faith. Those who cannot surrender carry invisible armor, layers of tension, pride, and fear. But armor that protects also imprisons. To be truly alive, you must remove it. Vulnerability is not danger, it is truth. Only in openness can grace enter. To surrender is to acknowledge that your strength was never separate from the source that gave it. You are not giving up your power, you are returning it to its origin, where it multiplies. That is why those who surrender move effortlessly. They have become extensions of divine will. And when the warrior finally surrenders fully, he finds that nothing was ever taken from him, only returned in purer form. What he once tried to force now flows to him. What he once feared to lose becomes light. In surrender, he discovers the highest motion, effortless, timeless, and free. There is a moment when the striving must end. A point where your strength no longer builds progress, but begins to break peace. That is where effort dissolves and grace takes over. It is not surrender to failure, but surrender to wisdom, the knowing that not everything is won through will. Some victories are received, not achieved. The warrior learns this truth through exhaustion. He pushes, he fights, he bleeds, until one day, he realizes his effort cannot move what only faith can. The body tires, the mind rebels, but the heart still whispers, "Be still." That whisper is grace calling him home. Effort is necessary to awaken discipline. Grace is necessary to awaken peace. Without effort, you never learn your limits. Without grace, you never transcend them. The balance between the two is mastery, to push when it is time to act, and to yield when it is time to trust. This is the art of alignment. Grace begins where ego ends. The one who believes he can control everything lives chained to anxiety. But when he accepts that some paths are guided, not forced, the weight lifts. Life begins to unfold, not as a battle, but as a dialogue between human effort and divine intention. In the still space beyond striving, you begin to feel something holy. The tension in your chest loosens, and breath returns to rhythm. You realize that effort alone was never what carried you, it was grace wearing the disguise of your will. The warrior bows to this realization with humility. Grace is not the absence of work, it is work refined by faith. You still move, but your movement becomes lighter, cleaner, wiser. You stop pushing and start aligning. The river flows faster, not by fighting its direction, but by following it. So it is with the soul. When you trust the flow of grace, struggle transforms. Obstacles no longer feel like punishment but precision. They shape you, rather than break you. What once felt unfair now feels necessary. Grace rearranges pain into purpose, and that transformation is the foundation of peace. The ego resists grace because it thrives on control. It wants proof, timing, certainty. But grace is beyond reason. It moves in silence and delivers in ways logic cannot predict. The warrior who lives by awareness learns to stop questioning and start witnessing. He does not plan miracles, he allows them. In the place where effort ends, time changes its texture. Minutes stretch into meaning, and presence becomes profound. You begin to notice the details you once rushed past: the warmth of sunlight, the stillness between heartbeats. Grace teaches you to live inside each breath, instead of racing through them. Effort builds form, grace fills it with life. You can train your body, discipline your mind, but only grace can animate the spirit. It is what turns routine into ritual, and repetition into revelation. The warrior knows no matter how perfect the motion, without grace, it is empty. To stop forcing is not to stop growing, it is to grow differently. When you release control, growth happens through trust instead of tension. You become a student of the unseen learning, not from what you conquer, but from what you allow. Grace often hides behind endings. What you call loss is sometimes divine reordering. When one door closes, it is not rejection, it is direction. The warrior learns to bow before what leaves as deeply as he bows before what arrives. Both are expressions of the same grace. The greatest movements of grace happen quietly. No applause, no lightning, only small moments of peace, returning where chaos once lived. You begin to understand that miracles are not loud. They are subtle shifts in perception that change everything you touch. The mind believes it must always do. The spirit knows it must sometimes be. In being, grace reveals itself. When you stop chasing outcomes, you start noticing presence. That presence is the language of the divine, spoken through stillness, through simplicity, through surrender. Effort is fire, grace is wind. Too much effort burns you. Too much passivity extinguishes the flame. But when the two work together, they create warmth and light. The warrior becomes the vessel burning with purpose, guided by flow. There is beauty in exhaustion when it leads you back to faith. When your strength finally fails and you fall to your knees, it is not defeat, it is invitation. That moment when you whisper, "I can't," is when the divine replies, "I can." And that is where grace begins. Grace is not earned, it is remembered. It was always there, waiting for you to stop long enough to notice. Like sunlight behind clouds, it never left your striving, only hid it from view. The warrior learns to walk beneath that light without claiming it as his own. When grace enters, resistance fades. You stop asking why and begin saying, "Thank you." Gratitude becomes your discipline, patience your weapon. What once felt heavy now moves with ease, because you are no longer dragging life, you are moving with it. The place where effort ends is not stillness without purpose. It is stillness filled with presence. It is where action and awareness merge into one. Every step becomes guided, every decision clear. You no longer chase alignment, you are alignment. Grace is subtle power. It moves mountains through stillness, heals hearts through patience, and transforms chaos through calm. The warrior who finds it becomes untouchable, not because he avoids struggle, but because struggle can no longer touch his peace. To live in grace is to live beyond pride. You no longer need recognition to validate your worth. You understand that what is meant for you cannot be taken, and what is taken was never meant to remain. You stop grasping and begin receiving. When you stop striving, awareness deepens. You see how much of your effort came from fear, fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of being unseen. Grace replaces fear with trust. It teaches you that what flows naturally is stronger than what is forced. The warrior who has touched grace no longer fears surrender. He knows that letting go is not the end of action, but the purification of it. In his stillness, he becomes unstoppable, not because of power, but because of peace. At the place where effort ends and grace begins, you do not stop moving, you move differently. You stop trying to lead the current and start gliding with it. What once took all your strength now feels effortless, because it is no longer just you. It is you and the divine moving as one. And when the warrior looks back, he smiles. He sees that every struggle was leading him here, to the quiet realization that grace had always been walking beside him. He simply needed to tire enough, soften enough, and trust enough to finally feel it. And in that awareness, he becomes limitless, not through force, but through faith. Healing is not found in constant movement. It lives in the quiet spaces between one breath and the next. The pause, that sacred stillness most people rush to escape, is where the body repairs and the soul begins to remember itself. The world calls it idleness. The wise call it alignment. For in the pause, you are not doing less. You are allowing more to happen through you. The pause is the forgotten art of restoration. It is the moment after effort, before the next step, when awareness returns to balance. Just as a sword must cool after being forged, the spirit must rest after striving. In that cooling, clarity is born. The heat of struggle fades, revealing the strength shaped beneath it. When you pause, you give life a chance to catch up with you. So often, we outrun our own healing, chasing goals faster than our hearts can mend. The pause invites us to slow enough to hear the lessons that exhaustion hides. It teaches that progress is not always forward. Sometimes, it's inward. In stillness, the wounds you ignored begin to speak. They do not ask for pity, they ask for presence. The pain was never the enemy avoidance was. The pause is the silence where you finally listen. Listening, not fixing, is what allows the healing to begin. The body knows how to restore itself when you stop interfering. The breath deepens, the pulse steadies, the mind untangles. The warrior who respects the pause understands that stillness is not absence of motion, but precision of energy. Healing begins the moment you stop resisting what needs to rest. The pause is the bridge between chaos and comprehension. It separates reaction from response, confusion from clarity. In that silence, you see what was once blurred by urgency. Every pause, when embraced, reveals the wisdom that rushing conceals. In a world addicted to momentum, the one who pauses becomes powerful. He moves with intention, not compulsion. Each action carries weight because it arises from stillness. The warrior's strength lies not in how much he moves, but in how consciously he chooses to move. Healing requires space. You cannot mend what you never stop to feel. The pause is that sacred ground where the spirit catches its breath. It is not a luxury, but a necessity. Without it, you do not grow. You only continue breaking in smaller pieces. When you pause with awareness, you allow the divine to move within you. What you cannot fix through effort, grace repairs in silence. You stop trying to hold the world together and discover it was never yours to hold. That realization is the beginning of true peace. The pause humbles the ego. It reminds you that time is not yours to command. You learn that waiting is not weakness, it is wisdom in disguise. The warrior bows to the rhythm of life, understanding that even the heart rests between beats. Without the pause, there would be no life at all. In the pause, you feel the pulse of existence. You realize that everything breathes the wind, the ocean, the earth itself. Each lives in rhythm, expanding and releasing. The one who forgets to pause moves against the natural flow of creation. To rest is to return to harmony. The greatest teachers, nature, breath, time, all move in cycles. None rush, yet all fulfill their purpose. The warrior watches this and understands. Healing is not a race, it is a rhythm. To honor the pause is to trust that nothing alive is ever truly still. It is only becoming. The pause reveals the truth about control. You were never in charge of the outcome, only of your effort. Once the effort is made, silence must follow. That silence is not uncertainty, but surrender. Healing needs that trust as much as it needs time. When you rest in awareness, you notice how silence is not empty. It is full of reflection, full of renewal, full of revelation. The pause becomes a teacher more eloquent than words. It shows you that being is not separate from becoming. The pause gives pain room to transform. When you stop trying to escape it, pain loses its sharpness. It softens into meaning. What once hurt begins to teach. The warrior learns to sit with discomfort until it reveals its purpose. Every scar carries a story of resilience. The healing hidden in the pause is not about recovery. It is about rebirth. You do not return to who you were. You rise as someone wiser, calmer, deeper. The pause is not a retreat from life. It is a sacred preparation for it. Stillness does not weaken the spirit, it tempers it. When the storm ends, the ocean does not rush to move again. It settles first. That settling is strength returning in silence. The warrior knows when to strike, but also when to be still enough to let power rebuild. The pause is the space where faith grows. When nothing moves, when no progress is visible, belief must carry you. It is in that unseen space that Allah renews what was worn, fortifies what was fragile, and plants peace where pain once lived. Healing is not about erasing the wound. It is about learning to live from it with grace. The pause allows you to see that your scars are not signs of weakness, but reminders of repair. You survived what once seemed impossible. That knowledge becomes strength. When the mind resists the pause, the body rebels through fatigue. When the spirit accepts it, energy returns effortlessly. You learn that stillness is not stagnation, it is restoration. The pause does not steal your momentum, it refines it. The warrior who honors the pause acts with precision. He wastes no movement, no emotion, no word. His actions carry power because they are born from quiet. Silence is his forge, awareness his blade, peace his armor. In the pause, forgiveness finds you. You begin to release what clung to you out of habit, old fears, regrets, expectations. Each exhale becomes a cleansing. The heart that once carried too much learns to be light again. Healing is simply remembering how to breathe without holding pain. The pause teaches patience, but not the kind that waits reluctantly. It teaches the patience that trusts timing. You stop asking when and start asking what now. The focus shifts from outcomes to awareness, and that shift alone begins to heal the restless mind. To pause is to let the divine hand finish what you began. It is to understand that doing your part is enough. The rest belongs to grace. The one who pauses with faith never loses time. He gains eternity in every second of surrender. And when the pause is over, you do not rush back into motion. You move with quiet confidence, knowing that healing has changed you. You walk lighter, see clearer, breathe deeper. The warrior rises from stillness, not to escape the world, but to meet it anew, whole, aware, and unshakably calm. Mercy is the hand that repairs what pride destroys. When your strength fades and your plans collapse, mercy moves quietly through the cracks. It does not rush to fix, it restores with patience. The warrior learns that being mended by mercy is not about deserving healing, it is about allowing it. Grace does not ask who broke you, it simply begins to rebuild. There is an art to receiving mercy. It requires softness in a world that glorifies resistance. You must let go of the belief that you must earn restoration. Allah's mercy is not a transaction, it is a current that flows when you stop trying to dam it with guilt. To be mended, you must first become open. The wounds you hide are not beyond repair, they are waiting for surrender. Mercy moves into spaces honesty creates. When you admit, "I cannot fix this alone," you invite the divine to work through you. That humility becomes the first stitch in your healing. Mercy does not erase the scar, it sanctifies it. The mark remains, not as shame but as story. It reminds you that even the strongest fall, but only the wise learn to rise without arrogance. The warrior bows to the beauty of imperfection, for he knows healing is a form of art. To be mended by mercy is to learn the strength of gentleness. You discover that love repairs faster than punishment, and patience rebuilds deeper than pride. Mercy does not demand, it embraces. It transforms brokenness into a lesson in tenderness. The process of mercy is invisible but profound. It works in silence, beneath awareness. You do not see the moment the heart begins to knit itself together again. But one day you wake lighter. The weight is gone not because you escaped it, but because mercy carried it. The warrior learns that healing is not forced through effort. It unfolds through grace. What cannot be conquered must be surrendered to compassion. Mercy reaches where medicine cannot, into the soul's fractures, the quiet corners the world never sees. To be mended by mercy is to accept that your past was never wasted. The pain had purpose, the delay had direction, and the loss had language. Mercy translates suffering into strength, regret into wisdom, and fear into faith. You begin to understand that nothing was broken, only reshaped. Mercy is not passive. It is the most powerful motion in existence, the motion of love, choosing to rebuild what pain dismantled. It is Allah's way of teaching that perfection is not the goal, wholeness is. The warrior becomes whole not when he is flawless, but when he is forgiven. The proud fear mercy because it strips them of control, but the free welcome it because they know control was never real. Mercy teaches that healing comes not from domination, but from devotion, not from force, but from faith. When mercy touches a heart, it does not just mend what was broken, it restores what was forgotten. You remember your worth beyond your wounds. You realize that even in your darkest moments, the divine never turned away, only waited for your return. Being mended by mercy means embracing patience with yourself. You do not rush the process. You do not judge the scars. You simply allow the light to reach places you once hid. Healing happens not when you demand it, but when you stop running from it. Mercy does not arrive with thunder. It arrives with quiet. You feel it in the moments when peace returns unexpectedly, when forgiveness replaces anger, when gratitude grows in the soil of pain. That is the art transformation without force, renewal without pride. Every wound is a door through which mercy enters. But most people close it with shame. They hide their pain, fearing judgment. Yet mercy flows where vulnerability lives. To expose your brokenness is not weakness. It is trust in the one who can mend. When you are mended by mercy, you begin to see others differently. You stop demanding perfection from those still breaking. You become gentle because you know how it feels to be rebuilt. Compassion becomes your reflex, not your performance. Mercy teaches the warrior to pause before judging, to breathe before reacting. For every heart carries a wound invisible to the eye. The one who has been healed by grace learns to extend it to be a mirror of the same love that restored him. Healing through mercy is not forgetting, it is forgiving. Forgiveness does not erase memory, it transforms its meaning. What once hurt now humbles. What once burdened now blesses. The scar remains, but it glows with wisdom instead of pain. To live mended is to live in remembrance. You stop glorifying struggle and start honoring grace. You begin to move with calm awareness, knowing that what broke you once gave birth to strength that no comfort ever could. Mercy replaces fear with faith. You stop fearing pain because you have seen what healing can do. The storm no longer terrifies you. It reminds you of how deeply the sky can clear. The warrior no longer runs from breaking. He knows mercy always follows. The art of being mended is not about perfection. It is about presence. It is waking each day aware that you are still being repaired in ways unseen. Mercy is not a moment. It is a rhythm. Every breath you take in gratitude is another stitch of grace. When you allow mercy to mend you, you stop striving for control over your journey. You understand that what falls apart is often what was never meant to stay. The divine does not destroy to punish. He dismantles to rebuild with purity. Mercy transforms your relationship with time. You no longer rush healing or fear delay. You trust the process, knowing that each season has purpose. Even in waiting, mercy is at work, shaping what you cannot yet perceive. The warrior who has been mended by mercy becomes unbreakable, not because he cannot fall, but because he knows how to rise. His strength is not defiance, it is faith. His scars are not symbols of pain, but proof of grace. And when he stands again, he does not boast of survival, he whispers gratitude. He knows he did not heal himself. He was healed, mended not by will, but by mercy. And in that realization lies the highest form of strength, the peace of being remade by love itself. Rebirth does not come through movement, it is born in stillness. When you finally stop fighting, stop chasing, and stop pretending, the truth emerges from the silence. Stillness is the cradle of renewal. It is where the fragments of who you were begin to rearrange themselves into who you are meant to be. The warrior learns that to be reborn, one must first become still enough to hear the sound of transformation. Stillness is not emptiness, it is incubation. Beneath the quiet, life begins again in unseen ways. The seed buried in darkness is not dead, it is preparing to rise. In the same way, your spirit uses silence to gather strength. The world may see nothing changing, but within, everything is being rewritten. Rebirth demands stillness, because creation requires patience. The universe itself was born from silence, a pause before sound, a breath before form. The same principle lives within you. Every new version of yourself begins in that sacred pause, where chaos settles and clarity awakens. The stillness between who you were and who you are becoming feels heavy. It is a place where the old no longer fits, and the new has not yet arrived. Most run from it, fearing the void. But the warrior knows the void is not absence, it is the womb of becoming. He waits there, not with fear, but with faith. Stillness cleanses the noise that keeps you from hearing your own soul. In its quiet space, illusions fade. You see how much of your life was shaped by reaction rather than awareness. Rebirth begins when you stop moving blindly and start living consciously. In stillness, the layers of identity peel away titles, fears, expectations. You begin to see the self beneath performance. The silence is uncomfortable because it confronts you with what is real, but that discomfort is the sign that awakening has begun. Rebirth requires the death of distraction. You cannot evolve while clinging to the noise that numbs you. Stillness demands you feel what you avoided, face what you buried, and release what you no longer need. It is not gentle, but it is honest, and honesty heals. When the warrior sits in stillness, he learns the power of waiting without idleness. This is not the stillness of defeat, but of preparation, like a bow drawn, silent, yet full of potential. The moment he moves again, the motion will be pure, uncluttered, and precise. Stillness reveals that healing is not about adding more, but about shedding what no longer belongs. The weight you carried was never yours to keep. When the noise quiets, you realize how light you were meant to be. Rebirth is not becoming more, it is becoming true. There is a sacred rhythm in stillness. Each breath is a cycle of death and renewal. The old leaves, the new enters. The warrior learns to listen to this rhythm. In it, he discovers that rebirth is not a single event, but a constant state of becoming. Stillness teaches humility. It reminds you that growth does not respond to force. You cannot rush a sunrise or demand a flower to bloom. You must wait in trust, knowing that the divine unfolds at its own pace. That patience is not weakness, it is faith in motion. When you stop running, you meet yourself again. The person beneath ambition, beneath roles, beneath pain. Stillness reintroduces you to your essence, the part untouched by chaos. That meeting is both terrifying and liberating, for it shows you what was always whole. Rebirth in stillness feels like emptiness at first, because the ego is losing its grip. But as you linger there, peace grows quietly. The silence that once frightened you becomes familiar, then sacred. You realize that what you feared losing was only the noise that kept you from hearing truth. In stillness, time loosens its hold. The mind stops racing ahead or rewinding behind. You exist only in the breath you are in, and there, eternity opens. The warrior touches timelessness, not by conquering the world, but by being fully present in it. The moment you surrender to stillness, control dissolves, and in its place, clarity rises. You stop chasing answers and start receiving them. Life begins to speak through subtle signs, the breeze, the light, the pulse of your own heart. Awareness becomes revelation. Stillness is not the end of motion. It is the origin of right motion. When you emerge from it, you move differently, slower, sharper, with intention. Each step carries presence, because it was born in reflection. Rebirth is not a change in direction, but a change in depth. In stillness, you learn that peace is not escape, but mastery. It is the ability to remain unmoved by chaos, while still moving within it. The warrior who has found stillness carries a calm so deep that no storm can disturb his center. Rebirth teaches gratitude for endings. You begin to see loss, not as punishment, but as clearing. What leaves creates space for what's meant to arrive. In that understanding, pain becomes sacred, not something to resist, but something to revere. Stillness sharpens perception. You start noticing what was always there, the softness of light, the rhythm of breath, the unseen grace guiding your path. These small details become sacred truths. They remind you that rebirth was never about starting over, but seeing again. When you allow yourself to stop, you realize how much life was happening without your awareness. Stillness reawakens your senses. You begin to taste, hear, and feel the present as if for the first time. The ordinary transforms into revelation. Stillness invites forgiveness. As you sit quietly with yourself, the harshness fades. You see your past, not with anger, but with understanding. Mercy seeps into the cracks where judgment once lived. The warrior realizes that to be reborn, one must forgive who they were. The silence between breaths becomes a sanctuary. You start to crave it, not out of retreat, but remembrance. In that space, you reconnect with the divine, not through effort, but through awareness. Stillness becomes prayer without words. When you rise from stillness, you do not carry the same mind. You move lighter, speak softer, and see clearer. You no longer seek validation in noise. Your peace comes from presence. That is rebirth, the quiet revolution that begins inside and changes everything outside. Stillness teaches you to trust unseen timing. What is meant to bloom cannot be rushed, and what must fade cannot be held. In that truth, anxiety dissolves. You begin to live with rhythm, not resistance. The warrior moves like water, patient, aware, eternal. And when you emerge fully from stillness, you are not the same. The world looks familiar, but feels new. You realize that rebirth was never about becoming someone else. It was about returning to the version of yourself, untouched by fear, unbroken by time, and alive in awareness. That is the true awakening, the rebirth, waiting in stillness. Peace does not arrive when life becomes easy. It arrives when trust becomes deep. When you no longer wrestle with time, when you stop demanding that every answer appear now, something inside you unclenches. You begin to breathe differently. This is peace, not the silence of the world, but the stillness of the heart that trusts the timing of the divine. Time is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It shapes you through waiting, tests you through delay, and humbles you through uncertainty. The warrior learns that impatience is resistance to wisdom. What seems slow is often sacred, every pause designed to prepare, not to punish. To trust time is to understand that everything unfolds exactly as it must. The flower does not rush its bloom, nor does the river argue with its bends. When you live with this awareness, tension disappears. You stop trying to push the current, and you start flowing within it. Peace is born where control ends. The one who must always know, who must always predict, carries the heaviest burden. But the one who says, "I trust the unfolding," walks lightly. Trusting time does not mean doing nothing, it means doing your part, then releasing the outcome into higher hands. The restless mind believes peace is found in achievement. The awakened spirit knows it lives in acceptance. When you trust the pace of your own journey, comparison fades. You no longer measure progress by others' clocks, only by your own awareness. Time refines everything it touches, iron into strength, pain into wisdom, confusion into clarity. The warrior learns to let time do its work. Peace grows not by force, but through faith that every season serves a purpose unseen in the moment. Impatience is a form of fear, the fear that what you seek will not come. But time has never failed to deliver lessons to those who wait with awareness. The one who rushes meets resistance. The one who trusts meets alignment. Patience is not waiting longer, it is worrying less. To trust time is to trust yourself. It means believing that every step, even the uncertain ones, is guided. The warrior no longer regrets the slow days or mourns the delays. He knows that what feels like waiting is often the silent building of inner strength. Peace is not granted, it is grown. It blossoms where trust is watered daily. You train your spirit to stay calm, not by avoiding storms, but by remembering that no storm lasts forever. Time has its rhythm, and even chaos obeys it. Every delay hides a blessing. The path that takes longer shapes deeper roots. Quick success builds ego. Slow success builds character. When you trust time, you no longer crave speed, you crave depth. And from that depth, peace emerges naturally. Trusting time means learning to see beauty in incompletion. You stop saying, "I'll be happy when," and start saying, "I'm grateful while." That shift changes everything. The present stops being an obstacle and becomes the teacher itself. Peace comes when you stop fighting the calendar. You realize that your purpose is not running late. It's arriving precisely when you're ready to receive it. The warrior learns that divine timing is never wrong. Only human impatience makes it seem so. Time heals what you cannot. It softens pain, reveals truth, and opens paths unseen. To trust time is to surrender to its intelligence, to believe that even the pauses and the losses are part of the design. Peace is the reward for that surrender. When you trust time, you stop asking, "Why now?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" The shift from complaint to curiosity transforms delay into discovery. The warrior learns that every moment, even the slowest, holds a lesson meant just for him. Peace is the sound of no resistance. It is the space inside you that remains unmoved, while everything else changes. Time does not destroy peace, it reveals it. The longer you trust, the quieter the noise becomes, until only calm remains. The ego demands speed, the soul prefers depth. Time sides with the soul. It stretches moments so you can grow into them fully. The warrior who trusts time becomes unhurried, yet unstoppable, not because he moves faster, but because he moves in rhythm with destiny. Trusting time does not mean standing still. It means moving with awareness. Each step guided, each pause intentional. You stop running from the unknown and begin walking with it. That walk, calm, deliberate, unshaken, is the definition of peace. When you stop measuring your life in deadlines, you begin to measure it in depth. Each experience becomes complete in itself. You no longer live in fragments of before and after. You live in now, and the now, fully embraced, is timeless. Peace grows when you realize that even pain has its own schedule. Healing cannot be rushed. The wound closes when it has taught what it came to teach. To force recovery is to reopen what time was already healing. Trust gives rest. Rest gives renewal. The warrior learns to let time test him instead of trying to test time. He knows that strength built in waiting lasts longer than strength built in haste. He finds comfort in knowing that every delay is sculpting a deeper version of his patience. When you trust time, you stop chasing signs and start embodying faith. You stop asking for proof and start living as if what you hope for is already forming. That quiet certainty is peace, the kind that doesn't need evidence to believe. Time is the ultimate equalizer. No one controls it, yet everyone is shaped by it. The difference lies in how we respond with panic or with peace. The warrior's mastery lies not in beating time, but in moving gracefully within it. Peace is not found by escaping the clock, but by aligning with its rhythm. Each second becomes sacred when you meet it fully awake. The impatient live in fragments, the trusting live in flow. Trust turns time from enemy into ally, and when the warrior finally understands this, his heart softens. He no longer fears delay, nor mourns what takes too long. He knows that everything is unfolding exactly when it should. In that awareness, his spirit rests, for peace is the reward of trusting time. Peace is not something you chase, it is something that finds you when you finally stop running. When you trust the rhythm of time, the noise inside begins to fade, and what remains is truth, calm, patient, unshakable. You realize that life was never rushing against you. It was guiding you, preparing you in silence for what was always meant to be yours. The warrior who learns to trust time no longer battles uncertainty. He moves through life with quiet strength, knowing that what is delayed is not denied, it is simply being refined. He understands that peace is not built through speed, but through surrender. The calm he carries is not weakness, it is power, mastered through patience. Every breath becomes a reminder that timing is sacred. The pauses you once cursed were the spaces where wisdom was born. The detours you feared were the exact paths that shaped your soul. When you look back, you see that time was never late. You were simply learning how to walk in step with it. To trust time is to trust the one who made it. You stop asking when and start whispering, "Thank you." That gratitude becomes your rhythm, your heartbeat, your peace. You no longer demand control. You live in harmony with the unfolding of each moment. And in that harmony, you discover something greater than calm. You find communion with destiny itself. So let the clock tick, let the world rush. You remain still inside, anchored in faith, breathing in patience, exhaling peace. For the one who truly trusts time has already won, not through haste, but through harmony. And that is the quiet victory the restless will never understand.